Well, thanks very much, James. And I'm really grateful to, well, let's see here. Really grateful to CFA for offering me the opportunity to share. If you haven't had a chance to check out the blog post on their website, that's something that I think it's worth doing. I included some resources in there, as well as just some little tidbits of information help along this on this topic here of know your product, know your market, and have a plan. So before I get started, I just want to say a special thanks to the USDA Specialty Crop Block Grant Program, which is comes through the Kentucky Department of Agriculture, for the funding for this the program that you're about to see. It's a part of this Marketing for All curriculum. Information about that's available on our website. I'll talk a little bit more about it at the end, but special thanks to them. So I'm going to jump right in. This is a fairly old school approach to marketing, these different aspects of the marketing mix, the 4 Ps. I think it's still helpful, especially for basic and beginning conversations around marketing and marketing plans. So that's just going to be the framework that I'm going to use roughly. I'm not going to adhere to it super tightly, but just to give you a sense of where we're going, we're going to talk about each of these elements and how they fit in to your marketing. So I think one of the first steps in considering a marketing plan, thinking about telling other people your story, is understanding what product it is that you grow and produce. So some of the obvious answers to that question are the commodity itself, whether that be, I produce vegetables, or I produce beef, or I do crafts. But I think that there are ways to answer this question of what product is it that you're offering that go beyond just the basic identity of the product. And it would be some of these different variables. So locality, do your customers care that the product that they're purchasing is locally produced? That's something that has a lot of cachet with Kentucky consumers, more so than some other attributes. So, but it could be that your market, that's less important. But if it is important, that needs to be part of the message that you're going to eventually be putting out to people. The relationship with the farmer or with the market, is that something that's important? Transparency. People are sometimes concerned about growing practices, or they're concerned about processing practices or something, but being able to talk to you, if you're a direct marketer, which I'm assuming that we all are, that's something that may have value. This last one I have listed here is quality. And I think that's, for a lot of people, it's understood that quality is an important thing, but I've written it up here because it's frequently one of the things that people say that they're looking for from a farmer's market product. So high levels of quality, and qualities like freshness and taste and other things like that. And this is not an exhaustive list. You may have other things about your product, but when someone says, what do you produce? There's a difference between saying I produce locally produced, fine ripened tomatoes during the season, versus saying, I sell tomatoes. And as you're thinking about forming a marketing messages, really identifying and establishing that product identity is an important thing. And I'll just say, this is something a lot of folks get in trouble with, I think. These are the attributes of the product that your customers value. It's not just what you think the value is. I think people frequently get frustrated because their customers aren't willing to pay a premium for some characteristic that the vendor themselves values. And you can prevent this situation by doing a little bit of market research before you jump in. One of the classic examples is certified organic. A producer will make the decision to become certified organic and go through the time and expense to do so, expecting to sell their product for a premium, and then they find out that their local customers don't really care as much about that. They care more about this other aspect of the product. So as you're establishing your product identity, it's great to know what you're producing, but it's equally important to understand what your customers value in that product. This is just some generic data from a USDA project that had surveyed a number of customers, of local food customers. And you can see the things that they're citing as being important to their purchase choices. Most people are saying freshness and taste. I think the other ones here that I've highlighted of healthiness and safety and freshness. Again, it just fits with these are the attributes that the typical consumer cares about in terms of local food. And so keeping that in mind as you're building your marketing messages, throwing in, fresh, homegrown, healthy, maybe something, some aspect of your growing, if you do reduced sprays or you do integrated pest management, you want to explain what that is. But these really are the things that hit home with consumers, or when they put it in their mouth or when they feed it to their families. You are part in the direct marketing sphere. You, for better or for worse, are part of your product. We talk about this in terms of presentation at market, visual merchandising. Part of that is you and your own appearance. The guy on the left here in the red hat is working really hard. I would probably think about taking a shower before I headed out to try to sell some stuff to people in that case. The other two here, it's kind of the message of your farm that you may be sending. Look, this guy is best friends with this pig. It's a happy, healthy environment. Or we have kids and they get out in the field and they know where their food comes from, that kind of messaging. But you are part, you frequently become part of your product, and you are able, your presence there while selling it is able to differentiate your product for your consumer. So some questions you really need to ask yourself as you're thinking about direct marketing is, do I enjoy talking with strangers and customers? I think we've so often asked small scale producers who do direct marketing to do everything, to produce well, to package well, to sell it well, to put stuff together for people to take home, recipes, everything else. So I think sometimes being a little bit honest about our own personal attributes as marketers can be a helpful thing. Do you feel energized after market days? Now, I know you're going to be tired, but are you also drained from having to deal with people? Do you feel, as a marketer, do you feel comfortable? I said bragging here. I don't actually mean bragging, but telling people about all the great, wonderful, positive attributes of your product. If you don't feel comfortable with those things, you might consider switching tasks. Maybe you can get someone else to go to market for you. Or the other thing, and I think it's a truth that a lot of marketers don't talk about, and even in the professional world, when we think of people who are really good at marketing a product or selling a product or networking and selling themselves in professional settings, a lot of that can be learned and practiced. And so the trick is making it feel, having your key pitches, sales pitches, icebreaker things when customers come up, but still making that feel like an authentic individual experience where you are marketing your product directly to them. But just being honest about your own limitations as a marketer, things that you would like to work on and improve. Again, you are part of the product that you have to understand. You are part of the product that you're selling, and understanding that allows you to differentiate yourself, differentiate your farm, your product, etc. So that's, I'll just leave that there for now. Do we have any questions or anything like that right before I keep moving ahead?
Nothing popping up, but we can give it a minute here, give it a few seconds. I'm working on a technical difficulty with one of our attendees.
Oh.
Nothing yet. Now, is there is there a way for this? Are there things within this that we can utilize sort of collectively for market's approach to marketing, like the market as a whole?
Thinking strategically as a market.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you see markets across the state, each of them, they have their own identities as well. And that is heavily dependent on both the customers that they're already serving and the customers that maybe they'd like to attract and serve. So the degree to which you emphasize kind of a farm feel at the market, or you're trying to harken back to an older, back in the days of the fruit and vegetable stand, I remember that they had when I was a kid, that kind of feeling. There's other markets that take more of an approach to create a community fair environment, like a I don't know how to describe, like a that it's an event that you're going to. So that includes things like food vendors, sometimes music, sometimes things like that. But in both of those cases, just making sure that you're understanding your vendors' identities, you're understanding what they would like to do, and then we'll talk a little bit about the different places and the different types of markets and what to emphasize there. But I think the other, as far as products go, one thing I think all markets could do, could think about doing, is trying to coordinate a little bit between vendors, to think, how can we have a variety of products available, rather than having 12 vendors who are all selling tomatoes, corn, and beans. Can we have people who maybe everybody is growing a little bit of that or growing some of that, but looking at opportunities to diversify the products that you're offering, maybe things like carrots or things like greens and fresh lettuce mixes, or some value added products or something like that. But again, I think it starts a little bit with understanding what your customers are wanting and valuing. And I think there are some markets where the core group of customers, they want that tomato, corn, and bean stuff. But as you start to reach out and try to expand the group that you're trying to hit with your market, they may have interest in a broader selection of products.
One thing that you guys might all be aware of it, the folks that are attending this, but it bears mentioning because Brett kind of alluded to something that happens every off season in Whitesburg. They at their annual meeting, they will lay out a large piece of paper, and probably butcher paper, over a 6-foot table, maybe two next to each other to get it to 12 feet. And they have the producers all sort of list what they plan on growing next year, or growing in during the market season. So it gives everybody sort of an opportunity to see what the market is offering the customers. And there's opportunity there to kind of for everyone to kind of get an idea of what they might be able to expect for this following year, and possibly find gaps that can be filled by an individual, or sort of as a team. So yeah, I just felt like I needed to mention that, because I think it's a really cool idea.
Yeah, it's a really valuable exercise.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, no other questions have popped in, so we
cool. I'll keep on rolling.
Okay.
So the next item, we just talked about product and how you're an extension of your product. The next one here is place, and we have to recognize that we're selling things in different places. Different things are going to come into, they are going to factor in. The customers are going to want different things. On the left here, we have a picture of a farmer's market stand. On the right here, we have a locally grown product at a Walmart. Customers are very different. Price structure is different. Everything's about those is different. That's kind of obvious, but there's differences even within the farmers market community. And many of us know these, but I'm going to talk a little about them here. It's partially based on location, and secondarily, I think, based on the customer base. But I'm going to talk through each of these. Talk through these first two primarily. But in these markets, differentiation is the key. So how is it that your product is special, is different, is unique, and why do I as a customer care about that? Different customer bases will care about different things. In general, the best practice is to make your marketing strategy fit the needs of the market. What I mean by that is give the people what they want. It's much easier to sell someone a product that they already want than it is to make them want a product and then try to sell it to them. It can be done. It happens all the time. But if there are ways to meet the needs of your market proactively rather than trying to figure out a way to convince people to want your product, it's a much less of an uphill battle. This is something we've kind of worked through. These are different types of farmers markets, and this is a spectrum. I don't think that there's any one that falls all the way one way or the other. But credence market, some of the key aspects of a credence market is that the customers are less price sensitive, meaning if a price goes up, if something seems priced high, they don't tend to care about that quite as much. That's not the main focus that they're thinking about. They care more about some of these credence attributes. It's this LOHAS is lifestyle of health and sustainability. So they're thinking about the attributes of it, the localness, whether it's organic or sustainably grown or whatever that means. There's a lot of emphasis on value-added products. But to get access to these customers who don't care about spending a little bit more money, frequently the market itself is very expensive and difficult to get into. On the other end of the spectrum are price markets, and these customers are considerably more price sensitive. They're looking for a good deal on a product. They're looking for values. Frequently, they're trying to look to buy stuff in bulk. They want a larger volume. They are the ones who are doing their own value added. So some of the differences here, a credence market, a customer may be more likely to buy a pint of blueberries and eat them fresh. In a price market, they may be looking to buy 2, 3, 4 quarts of blueberries at a good bulk discount and canning them themselves. A credence market consumer, if they want jelly, they'll just buy the value-added jelly from the stand. In the price market, they're making it themselves. So again, these are broad generalizations, but it's important. I think when we get into trouble is sometimes when people go into selling at a price market and they have expectations that they're going to be selling at a credence market, or they'll try to make that market and those consumers into a credence market consumer. And some people don't want to pay $3 a pound for their tomatoes, no matter whether it's certified organic, whatever. They're looking for a tomato at a good price, and even better if you can sell them some bulk tomatoes so they can put them up in their salsa or in their tomato sauce. You see some similarities or some overlap, I guess, between urban markets and rural markets, though this is not always the case. You can definitely have credence rural markets and price urban markets. Urban areas tend to be able to support multiple markets, and so sometimes you'll see both types, or you'll see multiple different types of markets pop up in those places. But the closer you are to these people, the more ready access you have to a market, typically the more they're going to charge to be a part of it. One of the variables in rural markets especially is that mid to late season becomes challenging, because frequently those customers are growing their own gardens, and they were buying from the market just until their own stuff came in. So thinking about either providing things that they can't grow or don't want to grow in their own gardens, or there's no easy solution to really diversifying around that. But it could be reaching out to some of the folks who don't have gardens, or reaching out to people who from a surrounding area that maybe didn't know there was a farmer's market, and think that is a challenge that rural markets face.
Hey, Brett, I just put together 2 really quick polls. I thought it'd be interesting to see what we get. And I'm going to run them real quick. So the first one is, what percentage of your customers would you say are price market customers? So, you know, I broke it down into 20% sections. So how many of the customers that come to your market do you think fit that price market motivation? Let's see, we're about half the people have voted so far. All right, cool. And okay, so we've got, in attendance, we have the Bluegrass Farmers Market, the Boyle County Farmers Market, Winchester Clark, and Harlan County, excuse me. Okay, now let's do, that's that one, and now we've got one more, which is, what percentage of your customers would you say are Credence market customers? Okay, and those, great. And that's where most people are landing there. So that fits nicely with the other two estimates. So, okay,
yeah,
so
good.
about, yeah. Okay, so for the most part, your customers are, the majority of your customers are looking for Credence in their product, which is a good thing to know and a good thing to recognize.
Yeah, so as I continue talking, if you wouldn't mind to drop some of in the chat box, if you can find that, just say some of the things that your customers care most about, some of the variables. Do they care about localness? Do they care about how things were produced? Do they, you know, what is it that they care about? I'm kind of curious to hear what folks say. So the next step here is trying to take steps to figure out what it is that your market wants, or what it is that your customers want. And so I have just some very basic steps to get started here. If you have not already, really consider creating a Facebook page for your business. That includes for your individual business, but also for the market as a whole. If you don't have one of those, it can be a really powerful tool for small businesses to not have to spend a lot of money and get some decent advertising going. Because one thing you can do is you can take advantage of Facebook's tremendous capacity. Now you may have mixed feelings about it, but they're taking advantage of their tremendous capacity to collect data and understand its users. You can tap into that using what's called Facebook Insights. For those who have already done this, I'm sorry if I'm boring you, but those first two steps. If you start a Facebook page, and this is different from your Facebook profile, your personal profile, it will automatically collect this data for you. If you are if you're using a website of any sort, I really hope that you have some way of tracking how many people are coming, when they're coming, what all the different your user base looks like, etc. Google Analytics is a really simple, it's relatively simple platform to use for that. In the real world, those are kind of digital things. Talking to your customers and just asking them a little bit about what it is that they care about, what it is that they're looking for, what they wish you had, or what they're glad that you have. You can consider doing some informal surveying to ask people what it is that they're interested in for the coming season, but that ongoing evaluation it's just a personal step that you can take. Visiting other markets is a great way to get new ideas. It's a good way to see the different way things are set up. Maybe you hadn't considered a certain product or a certain approach to marketing, or they highlight things with their signage or with their structure or whatever it may be that you hadn't thought about highlighting. Sometimes there's these eureka moments that happen as you're thinking about marketing either a market or your own business. And this was in the blog post, but there's a little exploratory market research app that you can use available, or it's not an app, just a program on the from the census, the U.S. Census Bureau. And it's kind of interesting. You can kind of see what different businesses are in your area and what's been successful, that kind of thing. I'm going to talk about a couple of partners who can help as you want to move past, okay, I have my personal sense through my Facebook page or through my conversations of what works and what doesn't. If you want to move into more of a formalized market research step, I'll talk a little bit more about that, people that can help with that, because it's hard to give. Those things are so individualized that it's hard to give a presentation or write a short document about it. It's much easier to let the people who can sit down one-on-one really work through that with you. So that we've talked about the product, we've talked about the place that you're selling it, the different types of markets, different types of customers that you have. And this next one is price. And on the right-hand side here, you see this 3-year average weekly prices publication. If you haven't seen that, we put that one out last year. We'll have a new one out this year for 2015 through 2017. It won't change very much, but this breaks down some of the average prices for about 18 different crops across this window of time. We just gave average prices at urban and rural markets. And in addition, on the CCD on our website, we post weekly farmers market price reports if you haven't seen those. These different market mix variables, these 4 Ps, they have ways of providing opportunities for each other. So for instance, the place that you sell, it provides opportunities for adjusting your prices and maybe raising your prices. It can also put constraints on your prices. The product, the same way. Some products, they'll provide opportunities for pricing. In some cases, you may not be able to offer a certain product at the price that you need to offer it based on the place. So the whole point here is these variables, they can help each other and they can also hurt each other sometimes. But I like to think, I think a lot about pricing because that's one of the big things that we do through the center. And one of the big questions I'd like to ask groups is, are you charging enough? And I don't know, maybe James, we could do another poll of, do you think that you're charging enough? Yes, no, not sure. But when I'm thinking about that question, typically there's 2 big questions you have to answer. One is what is the going price? What is a fair price for that ballpark? Is a tomato worth 50 cents a pound or $5 a pound or $50 a pound? Well, we all have a sense of that, but when it comes to something like mixed greens, people sometimes have a hard time. $8 a pound sounds like a really high amount, or it sounds like not very much. So as far as that question goes, I would recommend you to go and take a look at our price reports, go and take a look at, you can go walk through your local grocery store and just see what things are going for there as a rough ballpark. Again, realizing that your product is different from the product that they're selling there. It's a locally raised product, etc. But having a sense of what the price environment looks like is a really good starting point. The issue with that is, if I go and look at the CCD's price reports and I think, okay, this is what tomatoes are going for, so this is the price I'm going to set, that doesn't tell me a whole lot about whether or not I'm making money. So the second half of the equation is thinking about costs. So I'll just run through some of these graphs. These are 3-year average prices. This is for beans, and you can see the blue line is for urban markets. The orange line is for rural markets. This is per pound. You see, it's a relatively flat pricing across the whole season, which is kind of odd. You would normally expect that as the season went on and more beans came in, the price would go down, but there's generally a flat trend there. You can see there's differences obviously between urban and rural markets. And these urban and rural markets match up pretty well with the credence and price, blue being the credence markets. And here's carrots. I think one of the key one of the key observations here, so this is dollars per bunch or per pound or bunch, because the bunches we get are usually reported are usually around a pound, but this is the joy of farmers markets. But in this case, you can see the rural markets, the supply stops around July. Whereas with the urban markets, they have kept carrots going through almost the entire season. So this goes back to what James was mentioning about the Whitesburg exercise, where they sit down and write out what all the things that they're growing. Another aspect of production planning is trying to ensure, for the things that we can grow continuously, trying to ensure a somewhat constant supply throughout the whole timeline. Now, my guess is in that July through September-ish window, that's probably storage carrots. That would be my guess. Meaning they've harvested them in spring and then they've kept them, and there are some carrots that store well, kept them in cold storage, and then planted and planned for this fall, September, October, November harvest.
Okay, I've got that poll ready if you'd like it.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Oh.
Interesting. So does everybody see that result, James? So it looks like people are on the fence. Some of them, yes, they feel like, yes, I think so. I think we're charging the right amount. And some people, they think that they're not. But nobody's really sure, but nobody's completely lost either, which is probably a good place to be.
Well, I would suspect that there's probably we would like to charge more, but if we'll be able to sell it at that price attitude as well.
Yeah. And one of the tricky things with that is farmers market vendors as a group, and I'm generalizing here, they seem to despise more than anything taking product home. And they sometimes they'll prioritize selling out over raising a price slightly. And even if they could make a little bit more money at a little bit higher price, they seem, and I've talked to people about it, and I can understand logistically why that's an issue. But putting a little pencil to paper and thinking, okay, if I raise my per pound price by 50 cents, how many pounds do I have to sell in order to equal when I was selling out before? Because if you're selling out, especially if you're selling out early, there is a good chance that there is some potential for your price to move upward a little bit. That's just I have so very specific examples usually. I have one that comes to mind right now of one of our markets that does price reporting with us. The person who does the reporting was looking and saw that green onions, they're selling their green onions at that market for $1 a bunch, and everywhere else in the state is selling them for $2 a bunch. And they had a conversation with their market and they decided to try, okay, we're going to try to sell them for $2 a bunch. And they still sold out at roughly the same time, meaning they probably even have a little bit, maybe potentially a little bit more. And I'm not encouraging you to gouge your consumers at every opportunity, but there is frequently we want to not charge enough for the products because we feel bad about it. But there's nobody at the gas pump who feels bad when the gas prices have gone up and I fill my car up. So it's just something to keep in mind that a lot of products have gone up in price. So yeah. So tomatoes, again, you see a relatively flat price here. My guess is, despite our best efforts to police and keep out resellers, that's what's showing up in that very early data. But I think after mid to late May, we're seeing probably local products. And so when I say that when I say it's relatively flat, I'm comparing that to like what we see in some of our wholesale markets and in our produce auction markets. So for instance, the gray line that you're seeing is price. The green bars is volume. And so where you see, let me see, I think I have a little pointer thing maybe. I don't know. Where you see the bars starting to go up, that's in that May, June window. And as the supply goes up, the price goes down considerably, you know, from $2.50 a pound down to below $1 a pound in some cases. That's what we typically expect. And you compare that to a farmer's market price, and it's just this almost the same the whole year, which is kind of a unique and interesting thing about farmers markets, that people kind of keep their prices fairly static. But this is the flip side here. There's a lot of information to take in, and for the sake of time, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. But this is me ballparking how much it costs me to grow the amount of tomatoes that we do at our house. So we do about 50 plants. And I think if I were going to go, and I don't sell it, but if I were going to go and sell those at a farmer's market, I'm going to account for the fact that I have labor time staffing the booth. And so you can see that's the biggest cost there. But what I'm trying to demonstrate is the effect that small changes in price can have on profitability. So we'll keep that number in our mind of $1,200, a little over $1,200. This is a rough idea of what kind of yield we would expect per plant. Low amounts, on the high end, 25 pounds. So if you're doing all right and you're getting 20 pounds per plant, you can expect over a 10-week window to take 100 pounds per week. Again, the details here, not super important. But if I'm able to sell 100 pounds of tomatoes at $1.25 per week, $1.25 per pound, then that means I'm taking home about $125 every week from my tomatoes. Over that 10-week window, $1,250. Now keep in mind that the bottom line down here, $1,227. So I've profited after paying myself enough to go out and maybe buy a nice dinner for just me. Now compare that, $1.25, we raise the price to $2 a pound. And suddenly the pressure to sell a whole large volume of tomatoes is slightly lessened. I only have to sell 75 pounds per week at $2 a pound, and I'm going to make even more money. I'm making $1,500 versus $1,250. Now, obviously, if we double the price to $250, I now only have to sell 50 pounds per week at that price in order to make the same amount that if I had sold 100 pounds at my lower price. And overall, you're talking about a couple of dollars difference probably for your consumer over the course of a season, maybe $10, $15 difference depending on how much they're buying. But for you, setting your price appropriately can have a major impact on profitability. So these columns here are how much profit if I sell at $1.25 a pound, how much for $2 a pound, how much for $2.50 a pound. And then the rows here are at, how much you're selling per week on average. Now, what if it rains 2 out of those 10 Saturdays? Well, suddenly you have to sell even more on those off weeks, and a little bit higher price can help to buffer you. Now, again, keep in mind, I said opportunities and constraints. So your market may not, they may turn their nose up at $2 a pound, or they may turn their nose up at $2.50 a pound. And I don't know where that line is for you and for your market, but at least going and sketching out, like I did, a general idea of what your costs are gets you closer to understanding whether you're making money or not. Okay. And so just to give you some perspective, these prices, $2, $2.50, they're not out of line. This is our our price list here for, or sorry, this is our graph of 3-year averages for tomatoes. And you can see in the urban markets and in the rural markets, it's in that $1.75 to $2, $2.25 range for averages. So it's not, it's not completely out of bounds to see people offering stuff for somewhere in this range of $2 a pound. As I said, the place and product you're offering, it may get you better prices, but it could be that you're trying to produce a product that people in your market don't want, or they're not willing to pay very much for. So keeping in mind how those things compete when you're thinking about offering a product and bringing it to market. The last one here is promotion, and this is the one I think that you have the most control over. The other variables, it's important to, I mean, I guess you get to choose what product you're growing, but with promotion, you get to choose how you're conveying your message. And hopefully through being aware of the product that you're growing, the place that you're trying to sell it, and the price that you're selling it for, you have an understanding of the types of messaging that you'd like to get out about it. So different things are going to be different variables are going to be important in different markets. Some people may care about your story on the farm and your family or your production practices. Some people may not. They may just want to know when the sweet corns come in. So understanding those first 4 variables is going to drive what you do through promotion. We think about marketing, well, most people think about marketing, they think about the promotion step, but doing your homework on those other things, like understanding what you're trying to sell and who you're selling it to, is going to make this much more effective. So just some guideposts, I guess. This is a pretty conservative and I would say relatively low marketing budget, but 5 to 10% of your expected sales or your expected revenue for your business is a good starting benchmark. Most producers are more than willing to spend $250 on their seed catalog, but the idea of spending $250 on marketing, sometimes it rubs them the wrong way. Now, there are others, and they have had good experience with marketing and they don't mind at all, but a lot of times people get excited about the production, and I understand that. It's really, new varieties are really cool. It's exciting to grow the stuff, and most people who get into this, they get into it for that very reason. But the other thing I have here is just setting and tracking goals. I think it can be easy to get disheartened or to get overly optimistic as you institute a marketing approach. So you see more people coming to the market. That's a great thing. That's awesome. But then everybody looks at their ledgers and they realize they haven't really increased their sales at all. Or vice versa, people aren't really coming to the market as much, but the people who are coming are spending money. It's really dependent on what your goals are for your business. If you feel like visibility and support in the community is an important part of your long-term marketing strategy, then you might want to focus on getting more people to market, getting more people involved or more engagement. But if you're looking to expand your sales, my opinion is that if it doesn't really matter how many likes your Facebook post got if it didn't lead to the sales goals that you were shooting for. So just every time that you're investing money in marketing, it's important to have goals and to have some different markers that you're gonna use to determine whether or not that marketing campaign was a successful one. So I said this here, I think, Facebook reach, for instance, is one of the most challenging metrics to think about, because it can frequently make you feel really good, like you're reaching all these people, but then maybe people don't come to market. Or it could be that your reach is really good, and then that does lead to more people coming to market. So keeping a little bit of a multi-factor, multi-variable sense of whether or not this is worth, whether or not $200 investment in Facebook advertisement is worth it, or a $200 series of radio ads are worth it. I think that the promotional outlets that we think of now first in most cases, I think Facebook is one of the easiest. It's the lowest hanging. They'll collect that information on your behalf for free. You don't have to spend any money to have a Facebook page for your business. You don't have to spend money to engage people, but you do have the opportunity to use advertisements and post boosting. Websites, I think, are secondarily another option that most people get. And then Instagram, usually, I think once people are comfortable with Facebook and maybe having a website, they'll move on to using Instagram. But that's another outlet with different kinds of strengths and weaknesses. I'd encourage you not to forget about other forms of media. It could be that for your community, radio has way more reach than a Facebook post. That's going to depend, and that would be something that would probably come out in a more lengthy marketing plan. People still read the paper a lot. It's easy to forget that in the age of social media, but promotion can be as simple as signage, either for your market or for your business. If you do any kind of roadside stand or on farms marketing at all. I mentioned, on the right here, we have trunnels. You see, they don't really have any, they have absolutely fresh there at the top, but generally speaking, they're just letting people know when stuff has come in. That's what their customers care most about, so that's what they're trying to target. This is on the left. Here's a poor intern we had from France who went on a road trip with us, and he agreed to be in that picture there. Promotional stuff, it can be providing opportunities for people to make memories at the market or on your farm or whatever it may be. Up here I have this little girl with a bunny. You could have, some sort of a kids day at the market, those kind of promotional opportunities. But just going back to that, what do your different customer bases look like? This, you can see down here, this is for Kroger, one of the regional grocery stores. They are selling very different things through their promotion. And so it could be, if your people are really price sensitive, that you might want to go in the direction of advertising things about price or advertising things about value or some other attribute of the product. So it's not going to be a one size fits all for your promotional outreach stuff. And I think that's something that gets lost. Everyone, put out some hay bales and have a kids day, and that's going to fit all markets. And that may not be the case. Don't forget about the opportunity that your packaging can provide for doing some promotion of your product. So on the left here, we have some bulk generic peach boxes. On the right, these are still some generic boxes, but they have taken a card with the name of the orchard printed on there and stapled it to the package. It's a fairly inexpensive way to provide a promotional outreach opportunity and to remind those people when they bite into that product where they got it from. Because if they have, if you're ensuring product quality, you want to be able for them to be able to tie that back to who you are, so they can come back and get more next week. Another opportunity for promotion, you could think about doing some on-farm visits, on-farm activities or events, not full-on agritourism, but just an opportunity to bring the kids out and see the farm or something like that. I mentioned market events earlier and the different strategies that you can use to create an environment. There are pros and cons to this, I think. And this goes back to the knowing what your goals are and understanding them. If I have a really great, let's say a really great concert at my market venue on Saturday morning, and a bunch of people come, and it's great visibility, the newspaper's there, it's wonderful. And then I talk to my vendors and they say, yeah, it was great that so many people here, but our sales were pretty much exactly the same. And the week after that, they're pretty much the same. You have to decide as a market and as an individual whether or not that was a success. But market events can bring new clients in, new customers in that you hadn't really seen before. You could think about a farm to table dinner of some sort. So many of the communities and farmers markets around have done these. I'll talk about a little bit of a funding source available for that, but that's another type of event to potentially engage different people, let them know that your market's going strong, that what kind of products you have in at that time of year, etc. I'll just mention, I'm going to skip ahead just because for time here. Sampling, if you're not already offering samples at farmers markets, it can be a very effective aspect of promoting your product because it allows people to experience the quality and qualities of the product that you're delivering. So this is just asking people, okay, we saw that you sampled this stuff. What did you do? Did you buy it? Did you not buy it? And over half of them said yes, they bought the product and they had not planned to buy it. So sampling can be a very effective part of your promotional strategy and of getting new customers and engaging them. So this was the overview of these different marketing mix aspects. I'll say this, doing general overviews of this is helpful, and I think it can let you know what questions to start thinking about and asking. But beyond this, there are a number of partners in the state who can really help you take things to the next level. So I assume you're familiar with CFA since you're on the CFA webinar. They offer a whole bunch of different things. I just put these two here. But the other organization I'll talk just briefly about, if any of you all haven't heard of K-Card, I would highly encourage you to think about talking with them. They provide other services on a one-to-one basis that can be really beneficial as you're thinking through who are our customers, what's the feasibility for this certain venture that we're looking to take. A couple other partners. Oh, my UK logo disappeared. Hope that's not a bad omen. The Kentucky Proud program has a lot of different benefits to participating. I don't know, many of you probably are already Kentucky Proud members. But two that I'll point out here, the cost share and at cost promotional products are really, the at cost products are like stickers and bags and hats. They will sell you to those at the cost that they incur for them. The cost share program that they call them the POP grants, you can use that to pay for promotional activity for your market. And they'll match half the cost, or it's 3/4 of the cost sometimes. But the details of that, Sharon Spencer's the contact for that. And the last one I have on there is, I think, relatively new in the last couple of years, but that's this money to help put on a farm to table event like the one that I described. Again, that's available through the Kentucky Department of Ag. You can talk to them about those opportunities. Don't forget your cooperative extension service, which is shared between UK and Kentucky State University. There's lots of resources available from them. Oh, there it is. Delayed. This is part of a series of training modules on a wide variety of topics called Marketing for All. If you go to our website, the Center for Crop Diversification's website, you can find information about these different modules. And if you'd like to schedule a training with your market or with the people that you work with, please just let us know. That's the website there. That's my name, my email address. I think I've come up against 4 o'clock. So I'm happy for James and me both to address questions. And if James wants to talk a little bit more about CFA, that'd be cool with me. So whatever you'd like, James.
Okay. Well, I just thought I'd open it up to questions here. I think everyone that's on the call is familiar with what we offer and ways that we can help. But I thought if anyone would like to ask a question about just marketing in general, any thoughts about setting up a marketing plan for your market, or just for your individual booth? I think everyone on the call also runs their own booth. So if anyone has any questions there. Well, looks like I think nobody's got any questions this time around. So, one of the things that you guys will have at the end of this call is a survey. We'd like to get an idea of how this was helpful for you, if it was, and if your experience using this webinar software was a good one. So these are things that we want to make sure that we are we're achieving, you know, at least some happy customers, if not all. So, yeah, I think that's it. So,
if I could just add,
any questions.
If I could add one more thing, James,
Yeah.
if you'd like to report your prices with us this year, we would be really happy for you to do that. Please just send me an email. Again, my email address is just brett.wolff@uky.edu. We'd be happy to do that. So I'd just throw that out there to everybody.
Okay, great. Well, on that note, thanks everyone for popping on. We got one from Babette. Brett, can you define organic for farmers market promotional purposes?
Say that one more time. Can I define organic?
So, yeah, organic in quotes, quote, organic, unquote, unquote, for farmers market promotional purposes.
So the letter of the law is that if you are going to claim that your product is organic, it must come from a production system that has been certified organic by a certifier. In the state of Kentucky, that is universally, I think, the Kentucky Department of Agriculture. So technically speaking, or you know, according to the letter of the law, in order to say that it's organic, it needs to have gone through that inspection process. I think there are, in my opinion, if you're dealing with people who are not, if you are working with vendors who are not certified organic, it can provide an opportunity to open a conversation, assuming that assuming that the vendor's doing it in the right way, to say, well, no, we're not certified, but here's the reasons why, or here's what we do, or to even just ask, what is it that you're concerned about? Are you concerned about genetic engineering? Because most of the products that we sell aren't even available as genetically engineered products. You know, are you concerned about pesticide residues? Here's how we spray. Here's how we approach it. Are you concerned about environmental issues? Well, here's what, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But personally, I would recommend being careful about marketing a product as organic if it's not certified, because the USDA has taken a hard stance about that historically.
Yeah,
does that answer
I would. Yeah, I think so. She asks because those vendors supposed to organic grown but are not certified. Well, Babette, I would say that. I mean, the way that I explain it is that it is the organic. The word organic is a legal term, so yeah. it comes with legalities, and you know, I came from a market where or an association where in the rules and regs it said you cannot use the word organic in your language or in your signage without certification to back it up. And anything other than, if it's not certified organic, it is not organic, and you cannot market it as such. It's kind of a dangerous slope. It's not even slippery. You can get busted. And the USDA doesn't mess around with that. So I would. I think that those vendors need to know that there are some pretty severe risks if they're going to continue to use that term. I've seen people get creative with using words like, well, or using like turns of phrase like, we use organic methods, but we're not organic. I'm not crazy about that, but it's probably gray enough that it won't create like as much of an issue as saying, yes, this is organic, but we don't have certification to back it up.
Yeah, and I think different customers care whether something is or is not organic for different reasons. And I think trying to figure that out, and this is one of those opportunities that you have at a farmer's market or when you're direct marketing, is that you can have that conversation if the consumer is willing to do so. But just trying to figure out, are you just interested because it's a buzzword that you think you're supposed to want because you saw it in a magazine, or are you pretty informed about it and you're concerned about, the use of certain, some specific thing, some specific chemical and the way that it affects bees? Because if those are two different consumer bases that are
Mm-hmm.
doing this for very different reasons. And so, but as a market,
Yeah.
I would be a little nervous to have people slinging that around if they're not, if they haven't gone through the certification, just as a, like a liability. I'm a worry wart though too. So
Yeah. Let's see. Well, Woody asks, can we call it naturally grown? Actually, there's a certified naturally grown organization that you can join that's peer review. They're based in New York. I think that's their office is. I don't know if they're still around or not, but it's an interesting way to get around. There's marketing materials that come with being certified naturally grown. And I think the caveats are that you are agreeing to certain standards that aren't the same as organic, but still, what's the language on here? There's still good earth stewardship practices, I guess, land stewardship, and it's all done by people. By joining, you agree to be a part of a network of certified naturally grown members who agree to, self-police each other. It's an interesting idea.
Yeah, my guess is from a legal perspective that, I mean, I wouldn't say that you are certified naturally grown unless you are, but I don't think that they don't have the stranglehold on the legal definition of natural the way that the USDA kind of does over with organic. And so my guess is that wouldn't be quite as hot of a topic to broach without having the certification. They were at SOG this last year, so I'm guessing they're still certified naturally grown people.
Okay.
So I'm guessing they're still
okay, cool.
still hanging out. But so and
I mean, I kind of got on a tangent there for certified naturally grown, but otherwise, using the phrase naturally grown doesn't carry legally a lot of meaning. So there's no real risk in using it. I think if you put the word certified in front of it, there is some, but because that implies there's paperwork behind it. But just saying it's naturally grown, in the grand scheme of things, is hard to prove that the thing growing out of the earth is not naturally grown.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty safe sort of qualifier that you can use to describe just about anything in a farmer's market. Any produce, that is.
I'll say, for what it's worth, if you're interested in organic or you're interested in exploring what it is, there's some resources available from Extension, but we also have an Organic Association of Kentucky. If you wanted to get in contact with them, they have some resources to support. I mean, it's if that's something that you're interested in or you're intimidated by, I think there are resources available to help you walk through figuring out whether that's something you want to do.
Yeah. So Babette, let's talk offline about your concerns with organic, because I think there's some stuff that we can work on here, and see if we can come up with a solution that'll make you feel a little bit better about the situation. And well, I think we're running a little bit over, so if you guys have any other questions, I might wrap it up here. I'm waiting for things to come in. Thank you, Babette. Thanks for the kind words. And okay, well, guys, have a great rest of your Monday. I hope the snow is melting where you are. It's virtually gone where we are, so uh, I think I think we'll be back to normal March weather here soon. And on that note, thanks so much for coming. And please stay online and finish the survey. It's just 3 questions. It will let us know what you how you felt things went. So thanks so much, and have a wonderful day. Thank you, Brett.
Thanks, James.
All right, take care, everyone.